What's up everyone? Welcome back to Rules of Engagement. We just first went over how to use Mulus and Zerg vs Protoss. Then we talked a little bit about how often the best defense is a good offense. Now we're going to get on to a replay from a Protoss perspective about how Perseverance is a very important skill set to be a good Starcraft 2 player. There's really three types of things we're going to talk about here. One is we're going to look at a situation where things have gone wrong. Unless you guys at home have a 100% win rate, I'm pretty sure you've had some of these games where things have gone wrong for you. Number two, we're going to talk about how it's very important to not get frustrated even when you're behind, even when you feel like the game is slipping out of your grasp. And number three, well, we're going to talk about how you can try something risky and what type of risks are appropriate given your current game situation. So let's jump into this replay of Stork versus Puma on Ohana. The situation we're at right now, Puma opened with an aggressive build that killed several of Stork's probes, 15 in fact. Of course, Stork wasn't light years behind because Puma did make economic sacrifices of his own in order to do such a build. Puma then decided to follow up this build with a 1-1-1 Marine Siege Tank Medevac timing attack. This is a situation Stork is going to try to defend it, and it looks like it's a position where your standard defense might work. He's going to have his Immortal out soon, he's got some sentries buying time with force fields, Zealots, Stalkers. He's like, you know what, I think I can take this. If you look at the actual army value, the Terran's ahead by a decent amount, but from a Protoss perspective, it doesn't actually look like the Terran's ahead that much, because so much of the Terran army value is in these rallied siege tanks, these Marines, these other Marines here, all these units that aren't going to be in the fight. There's more Marines here. So much value is not in the fight. You just see what you see here, and you say, you know what, I think I can take this. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. So Stork tries to defend this, but all of a sudden with 3 siege tanks, the Zealots just get absolutely evaporated, the Marines get saved with the medevac, and Stork's at a spot where he lost a good chunk of his army. He hasn't killed much of Puma's. All of a sudden, he realizes he can't defend his base anymore. Puma gets more and more reinforcements. Stork's reinforcements just replace the units he's lost. His army is getting smaller, while Puma's is getting larger. Things have gone wrong here. He has to give up the expansion, which we're going to see right now. He's going to retreat to the high ground and then hopefully get these probes out. Maybe he can feint with his army. There we go. He feints with his army to buy time to get the probes out. Puma was scared of going after the probes, didn't want to get lasered down by that Colossi, or Colossus, excuse me, or trapped by force fields, things like that. He gets the probes out, but now he has had to give up his expansion, and he's going to be stuck in a contain. Right? Siege tanks and bunkers at the bottom of the ramp are very, very, very hard to break. So as we fast forward through here a bit to get to this contained part, one thing, Puma does make a little bit of a mistake here. He's moving these tanks at the bottom of the ramp, and this is something that actually doesn't make any sense really if you're going for a contain. If you're trying to kill your opponent, sure, but I don't think you can reasonably expect to kill your opponent when you have to go up the ramp and they have ranged Colossi. The ramp's kind of a no-man's zone in this situation. So as we see here, he's going to end up losing these 2 tanks. One thing I'll talk about quick before I get to Stork's point of view is there's so many Terran players who are in a situation where they have this contain. And I want to talk about how it can be important to know how to set up this contain well. So we're going to talk about things, maybe he should have positioned these units in a little bit of a different position. Instead of these tanks here, whenever you set up a contain over a certain choke point, the goal is to have the max range of your key units hitting about either the middle or the bottom of that choke point. The reason why, so he wants to have his tanks max range around this area, somewhere in this circle here. And the reason why that's so important is because then he can shoot his opponents as they go through the choke point, and his opponents have to go through the choke point in order to attack him. Where he is right now, it is nice. His tanks can shoot in a nice arc over here, right? So they can shoot any units in this zone. But the disadvantage is these Colossi can shoot them, right? I mean, that's the clear disadvantage. You're both going to die. It's not good when units die. So what he really like to have is he like to have his tanks pretty much back here. We're going to have tank number 1 back here. Maybe tank number 2 back here. Tank number 3 back here. Nice little arc with all their max ranges being, all their max ranges actually going through the straight line. All their max ranges being right here, shooting this choke point. And so this way, Stork has no chance of escaping this choke point, because the first unit, a couple units out, just can get blasted. By the time he can even get half his army out to be blasted again, and it's going to be an extremely effective contain. So that's one thing for you Terrans at home. Make sure that the max range of your units is on the choke point. Don't try to push up right underneath the cliff, because then your units can shoot you from on top of the cliff, and you actually didn't even utilize the concave or the choke to your advantage at all, which is the whole purpose of the contain. So let's get back into the game now and talk again about how Stork's perspective is. He does get these 2 tanks here, which is nice. He actually escapes with both Colossi, taking a little bit of damage on them, but does make the escape. And now Puma's going to have to just hold the contain a little bit further back. Now he's deciding, oh, he's going to push forward again there. It's a little bit bold. But he feels he can hold the contain right here. In any case, things are looking bad for Stork. The reason why is, one, he's stuck in a contain, and then eventually he's going to run out of money, right? He's mining out. And you can say, wait a minute, Puma's mining out too, right? Well, yeah, but he can just move his orbital down to natural, so Puma doesn't need to expand because he can just move that orbital once his main mine's out. But, I mean, Stork does need to expand. He's going to run out of money. And this is where a lot of Protoss players get frustrated. You're like, you know what, things have gone bad. I messed up my defense. My natural's down. And you're like kicking themselves in the face for saying, why did I lose my natural? If I macroed better, maybe didn't try to tech so greedy for Colossus, I would have been able to hold that, but didn't work out. The most important thing is that type of frustration can disrupt your ability to find a solution. So you have to train yourself to put all that frustration to the back of your mind and try to think of a solution. It's easy to say this game is dumb and just grab all your units, attack move them down the ramp, and you know what? If Stork tried that, I guarantee you he would lose this game. He would just charge down the ramp, get absolutely massacred. That's not the correct way to do things, but it's an easy option, right? It's easy to sit there and say, you know what, let's just have one last hang-bang attack and go for it. That's not a good solution. As long as he keeps a level ahead, which Stork is a master of. I mean, this guy's an absolute veteran, a professional RTS play, mostly in Starcraft Brood War. So he keeps a level ahead. And what he's going to do is he's going to say, you know what, I need to take a risk. So his risk is going to be load up the Mortals in a Warp Prism, and then bring warp in some Stalkers here and go for a counterattack. And then you could ask, you know what? That's a risk, because Puma. What if Puma made some Vikings to solidify the contain? What if he had an SCV here and he saw the warp in, and then he just grabs 10 Marines? He just grabs this group of guys right here, sends them in here after your army. They have Stim that can run down to Warp Prism. With Stim they can run into Stalkers. Even if the Warp Prism can get away, it can only carry either 2 Immortals or 4 Stalkers. You're going to lose a good chunk of your army and lose the game. It's like, you know what? You're right. It is a risk. But he's already in trouble. He's already going to lose the game unless he takes the risk. So why not make a risky move that has the potential of winning the game instead of just throwing your guys down the ramp? And in fact, this risk will pay off, because it's a perfect type of risk. With his army right here, yeah, it's a weaker army, and he has even less chance of getting down the ramp. He doesn't intend to go down the ramp. What he intends to do is defend his main, because Marines and tanks trying to walk up a ramp, if they get stuck with a force field on either side, these Colossi will absolutely shred them apart. So Puma cannot go up the ramp just as much as Stork cannot go down it. Meanwhile, Stork's army all of a sudden is in Puma's main, and Puma has no way to respond to this, because he put everything in a contain, and he didn't really keep good enough scouting along the edge to notice Stork was circumventing that contain. A small squadron gets back, but it's not quite a big enough squadron at this point. Too many Protoss units have been warped in. All the SCVs are dead. This army's going to die, and now Puma's in pretty much a checkmate situation, where he can't mine, he can't kill Stork. I guess he could just sit here and try to go for a stalemate, but eventually Stork would just long-distance mine with a Warp Prism, fearing units out of the minerals. Puma decides to concede it at the moment and say, you know what, I've been outmatched. It was all because Stork made an intelligent, risky decision, and he had perseverance to stay in the game, where a lot of Protoss players would have said, you know what, back when I was at this point, when I had to give up my natural, and I'm stuck here in the main with not even a great army. The foods look equal, but it's because he has so many more probes, and the probes are kind of useless because he's way oversaturated. So his actual army is considerably smaller. He's contained. His opponent can move their natural down once their main mine's out. It's such a frustrating position, but it's important to keep that clear head and come up with an intelligent risk that gives you a chance of making a comeback and going on to win the game. So to recap, when you're in a bad position, it's very important to have that perseverance. First thing is make sure you do not get frustrated. Keep that clear head because nobody's won a game out of frustration. It's occasionally you win a game in spite of frustration, but nobody's won it because of frustration. So don't get frustrated, and then try something risky. Sometimes it's making a hidden expansion. Sometimes it is actually going for that all-in attack, saying, you know what, this is the best chance I have to win the game, I'm going to go for it now. Sometimes it's saying, you know what, I'm going to skip sentries and tech straight to Templar or something crazy like that. Maybe I'll rush a Mothership. Maybe I'll go for Dark Templar. From a Zerg perspective, maybe I'll counterattack, do some draw play. Try something risky that gives you a chance of winning. And then maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. And you know what, if it didn't work out, don't kick yourself over it because you were losing anyway. Who cares, right? But why not try something fun, try something risky? Maybe you won a few of those games you would have lost otherwise. I hope you guys enjoyed this segment of the rules of engagement. We're going to take a quick break. Then we'll be back with a question and answer period.